What just happened between the U.S. and Iran on February 28th, 2026? The world watched in shock as one of the most dramatic escalations in recent history unfolded between the United States, Israel, and Iran. An escalation so explosive it threatened to redraw the balance of power in the Middle East and shake the global economy. This is not fiction. It's happening right now. After years of simmering tensions over Iran's nuclear program, missile development, and regional influence, peace talks had begun earlier in 2026. But negotiations collapsed. On the early morning of February 28th, the United States and Israel launched a massive joint military offensive they called Operation Epic Fury, a surprise air and missile campaign aimed at crippling Iran's military infrastructure and leadership. After years of simmering tensions over Iran's nuclear program, missile development, and regional influence, peace talks had begun earlier in 2026. But negotiations collapsed. On the early morning of February 28th, the United States and Israel launched a massive joint military offensive they called Operation Epic Fury, a surprise air and missile campaign aimed at crippling Iran's military infrastructure and leadership. Perhaps the most shocking moment came when Iranian state media and U.S. officials confirmed that Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's most powerful political and religious figure, was killed during the strikes. This was a seismic event. The death of Iran's supreme leader sent shockwaves through Tehran's leadership and set off a furious response from Iranian forces, who vowed retaliation without leniency. Politically, Iran scrambled to form a temporary governing council, with factions within the military and clerical elite trying to stabilize the nation amidst chaos. Iran did not sit back. Within hours, Tehran launched waves of missiles and drones not only at Israeli territory, but at U.S. bases across the Gulf, including in countries like Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Explosions were reported near bases housing American personnel, causing casualties and prompting global headlines. Iran declared that all U.S. and Israeli assets in the region were now legitimate military targets. At one U.S. military base in Kuwait, American forces suffered their first casualties in this conflict, with 3 U.S. service members killed and several more wounded, marking a dramatic escalation. The conflict quickly spread beyond Iran's borders. Armed proxies allied with Tehran, especially in Lebanon and Iraq, began firing rockets and drones into Israel, drawing Israeli forces deeper into combat. Across the Middle East, civilian areas were hit, including oil infrastructure and key trade routes. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow but critically important waterway for global oil shipments, saw shipping plummet and fears of long-term disruption rise dramatically. Global markets reacted violently. Crude oil prices spiked as fears of prolonged disruption gripped investors and governments, while airlines rerouted flights and nations scrambled diplomats to avoid a larger world war. This is not just a military conflict, it's a human crisis. Iranian authorities reported hundreds of civilians killed and injured as a result of the strikes, including a devastating incident at a girls' school in southeastern Iran. Across the globe, nations have reacted differently, some condemning the strikes and calling for restraint, others supporting the U.S. stance on national security. Emergency sessions at the United Nations highlighted deep international divisions over the legitimacy and consequences of the attacks. Meanwhile, people within the United States have taken to the streets, with anti-war protests growing as the first American casualties are confirmed, igniting intense debate over foreign policy and the price of war. This ongoing conflict between the United States and Iran, now involving Israel, proxy groups, and nations across the Middle East, represents one of the most serious escalations in decades. Its true cost, both human and geopolitical, is still unfolding. If you want more detailed breakdowns like this, stories that uncover what's really happening behind the headlines, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us at Crime Atlas. We'll be diving deeper into this story, exploring the human impact, the political fallout, and what the world could look like next. Let me know in the comments. What part of this conflict do you want us to explore next? Civilian life, battlefield strategy, or the international reactions? Drop it below and stay informed.